This week, we bring you another episode in our full-time series. We're going to talk about all the different rigs that might be of interest to prospective full-timers and all the things that you might want to think about when you decide on a new RV for full-timing. That plus we talk about how to get rid of your trash when you're on the road, when you're boondocking, when you're at campgrounds with limited recycling, and a whole lot more. This is RV Miles. RV Miles is brought to you by LL Bean. LL Bean is a proud partner of the National Park Foundation, and you can help them support the parks by shopping their limited edition National Park Collection. Every time you purchase products from the National Park Collection, which includes totes, shirts, hats, patches, and more, you're helping to protect, restore, and improve parks throughout the U.S. Search National Park Collection at llbean.com and be an outsider with LL Bean. Welcome to episode 155 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby. And we are two full-time travelers who, along with our boys, Jack, Ethan, and Henry, are crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip. Each week we talk all things outdoors, from travel destinations to gear, industry news, our national parks, and a whole lot more.
We are coming to you this week from Montrose, Colorado, near Ouray, Colorado, near the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, which we haven't explored yet, but we're excited to get to see. We're coming off of a stint of about 3 days in the Curacanti National Recreation Area. I'm not sure I'm saying that right.
Sure.
But gorgeous camping along the Gunnison River. We took a wonderful drive along US 50, along the Arkansas River, and then over Monarch Pass, and then got to go into the Blue Mesa Reservoir. It's upstream of a dam on the Gunnison River and is the largest body of water in Colorado. It's not a natural body of water, but it's the largest body of water in Colorado.
And it was another pass. I'm sure you heard Jason say Monarch Pass.
It wasn't that bad of a pass,
It
though.
was another travel day for Abby with sweaty palms and wishing she could be sedated. But we did it. We'll leave it at that. We did it. And actually, we're a little frazzled tonight. Let's be honest. Yes, you heard me say tonight. We are recording this kind of on the we'll do it live sort of vibe tonight because we are trying to fit in a few things that we would like to do at Black Canyon of the Gunnison before we leave. And it was like do we record tonight? Do we not record tonight? Did you do the show notes today? No, I thought you were going to do the show notes today. Let's just wing it. So we're all winging episode 155 together.
We did a little planning, but it's just a little like getting it together.
Listen, if you're watching this, you are witnessing me in my jammy shirt. I've got my hair pulled up in the messy bun, and behind me is a sink full of dishes, which I will wash when we are done with this.
Anyway, we had a great time camping those 3 nights over at the National Recreation Area. I got to take Henry fishing for the first time, which was pretty special.
He loved it.
Really, really loved that.
He's hooked.
And we took a wonderful hike down into a canyon. You know,
did you just let that swim right on past you?
Oh, another one. Great.
I just feel like I punted that to you, and you just skated right on by.
I thought it would be just a little nugget for people to pick up.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Never mind. We're gonna
I'm gonna
highlight that, draw a circle around it, underline it.
That's the funny part of the script. Make sure everybody knows that.
But we took this wonderful hike down into the canyon. It was about 900 feet down and then back up to a beautiful little hidden lake. And you know what? I gotta tell you, during these coronavirus-y times, hikes like this, places like this that aren't that popular, there are still some really special places out there that aren't the capital N, capital P national parks, that aren't in the super touristy towns. Great places that you can get to and get away from people for a while.
And this was one of them for sure. And that hike was so special. And it really did kind of boot Petroglyph at Mesa Verde into the number 2 spot and moved this one up to the number 1 spot for me, because just getting down to that Gunnison River, getting down those 900 feet with children and then getting into that water. And then you swam, and our friend, you guys swam way out into the river. You went into sort of the intersection where the river sort of forks. And
Amazing,
you
like
were out
echoey
there.
canyon, no one around.
Phenomenal. And no one was there. We had the whole place to ourselves for a good 30, 45 minutes. And then it seemed like the lunch hour had passed and all the hikers descended, and we loaded up our stuff and moved on out and let them have the space. And definitely a lot more people came in.
This is the Cure Conti Creek Trail. If you want to check it out and get some more ideas, I'll put it in the show notes as well. Wanted to start the show off today with a listener question that we got in the email, editor@RVMiles. If you have any questions, Abby, would you read it for us, please?
Oh, I would love to. All right. This is from Mike, and he says, I live in a rural lakefront home in Maine, and trash is a bit of a nuisance. I don't want a container for local pickup. It's expensive, and I hardly produce enough trash to fill it. Also, there are recycling requirements, so I compost a bit, drive 30 miles to bring non-biodegradable or non-recyclable to a transfer site, and bring my plastic and cans and bottles to a nearby collection facility, which is open a half day every other week. In the summer months, I freeze anything that might smell and attract local wildlife until I can take it to the distant trash station.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
Wow,
Freezing your trash before you can take it to trash pickup.
That is crazy. So he goes on to say, so to the point, how do you handle the inevitable accumulation of trash, and you guys with kids no less? Paper, plastics, cardboard, cans, bottles, and non-recyclables, etc. in your travels. From personal experience, I know how it can accumulate, must be sorted, and the space it takes up even in a large home. That's a fantastic question. I think that's one thing people don't often talk a lot about is trash in your RV when you're out traveling, boondocking at a federal, a state, or a private campground. What we use for our trash is we actually have just one of these tiny trash cans that only fits grocery bags. We don't buy trash bags. We use the grocery bags that we get from shopping. It's kind of our way of reusing them because often we can't get to where we need to go to recycle them. So we use them as trash bags.
Yeah. So if we're at a campground with trash, we're often taking the trash out a couple times a day, which is fine because it's a job that we can give the kids.
Yeah, Jack is responsible for trash.
But more often than not, campgrounds do not have recycling. Now, there are some that do, but for the most part, our experience has been they don't provide recycling, and that's unfortunate.
It's a big bummer. And when we do get to a campground that does offer recycling, and a lot of times like a national park campground will have recycling. In fact, Lake Fork, where we were just at, they had a recycling option. When we have that option, we do try to separate out our recyclables. Another thing that we do though is we don't buy bottled water. We have our jerry can, or we will have our filter that we hook directly up, but we really do try to minimize the amount of trash that we have.
And we avoid paper plates and plastic silverware and all that sort of stuff as much as possible too. But you can recycle in a lot of towns around the country. There is often a recycle station that you can drive to. You often have to find the information out about them because, as you said, they are often not open every day of the week, and there's certain hours, and you can't drop stuff off if the gate's closed and that sort of stuff. So you do have to sort of look into it and figure it out. And there have been times when we've done that, especially when we have bigger items that we want to get rid of and recycle.
Yeah, and often though, the flip side to that is that a lot of times campers are quite removed from the city. So like you, Mike, we're driving a half hour, 45 minutes sometimes just to get to the nearest grocery store or and sometimes that grocery store is the teeny tiny little town grocery store. Mm-hmm. So that's really a challenge too. One thing we have found when we have some bigger items, like let's say we get a delivery from Amazon and we have a big cardboard box. Those cardboard boxes actually stay around with us for a while because Henry uses them as art.
They become homeschool projects.
They do. They actually do. We do find a way to reuse them. And so Henry will go and he will cut them up and create things with them. And so then that's kind of like reusing that item rather than buying all these art supplies all the time. I do actually try to reuse our cardboard and things that could be supplemented in his art because Henry loves to create and he loves to do art. And so that's kind of another way that we can find a new life for things that would normally just find themselves pitched into the trash at the end of the day.
You know, sometimes you're lucky enough to have a campground right next to the town dump. It's happened to us a few times.
I don't know how lucky we were, but we were definitely close.
But when we're boondocking, often we will just put those bags of trash into the back of the truck, and we don't generally, even if we're boondocking somewhere, we're usually driving in to see things and stuff, and we'll take that with us. Now, if you're pulling a trailer with a pickup truck, I want to caution you about putting your trash in the back if you have a soft cover on the back of the truck, because animals, especially bears, have been known to rip open your soft covers on the back of your truck to get to your trash. So be careful of that. Always be careful about what you do with your trash, leaving it outside and stuff for wild animals, because they will come get it.
Well, and it doesn't matter if you are in a campground in the heart of a city or in a campground that's completely removed. Just don't leave your trash outside, because one of the things that we noticed in a campground we were recently at that was in an urban environment is that the squirrels were very, very much comfortable and accustomed to people and coming up and looking for food, wanting us to feed them, looking around our campsite for food. So that was an indication that they had either been fed or had access to trash that shouldn't have been left out overnight.
Sometimes if you're really going to be spending a while away from trash, people really do take the time to organize and sort their trash, and in terms of like packing it like you would pack a suitcase so that it fits in the smallest area possible, and that can really save a lot of space. It sounds like with freezing your trash until you can take it to a dump, I think you've got it down though.
Yeah. So breaking down your items, breaking down any cereal boxes, finding ways that you can like make everything more compact. And Jason was saying sometimes, that we usually have 2 grocery bags a day. Well, we've had cases where we've only had 1. And I think that that's kind of my goal. If we have just a day where we only take out at the end of the day that 1 garbage bag that's a grocery size bag, then I feel like for a family of 5 who's been home all day, who's had 3 meals and lived all day long, I feel like that's a really good goal for us and the amount of trash that I want to contribute into the world, I guess, for lack of a better word.
I'm going to give you one more tip for disposing of trash when you're sort of out camping away from trash before we move on. One of my favorite places to dispose of trash after we're boondocking for a little while is a car wash, because often our truck needs washed after that, and they usually have big dumpsters for people that are cleaning out their cars when you go to vacuum them and all that sort of stuff. So that's a great place. Also, rest stops or a new campground. Sometimes we'll spend several days boondocking and then go into a campground and dump and fill and shower and laundry, and that's where you can dump your trash as well.
Which is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Because we've gone from 3 days of dry camping and we're now in a campground currently with hookups and laundry.
All right. That's trash.
Who knew you could talk about trash so much?
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have the answer to last week's brain teaser, and we're going to talk about rigs for full-time RV living.
Be right back. The RV Miles podcast is supported by Hughes Autoformers, makers of the Power Watchdog Smart Surge Protector.
Electrical surge protection is one of the cheapest insurance policies you can provide for your RV, and the Power Watchdog beats the competition with field replaceable surge modules. With other brands, when the surge protector takes a large surge or spike, you have to throw it away. The Power Watchdog can be brought back to life with one small, affordable part you can replace yourself. It's the last surge protector you need to buy. Use the coupon code RVMILES, all one word, for 10% off your order at HughesAutoformers.com. That's code RVMILES for 10% off at HughesAutoformers.com, or click the Hughes logo in the show notes for this episode. All right, it's time for the answer to last week's brain teaser. I really liked this one. What letter is 3 to the right of the letter that is immediately to the left of the letter that is 2 to the right of the letter that is 3 to the left of the letter F? And I think you answered.
I think I said H.
You said H.
Yes.
You were so close.
Oh, really?
The answer is G.
Hot dog.
G
Look at that.
is 3 to the right of the letter that is immediately to the left of the letter that is 2 to the right of the letter that is 3 to the left of the letter F.
All right, then I'm getting really good at these. It only took 3 years
For you to get almost right.
for me to get like almost right.
We'll have a new brain teaser later on the show. But now it's time to talk about rigs, RVs, trailers, motorhomes, vehicles
Campers, whatever
that
you
you
wanna
might
call
want to
them.
use for full-time RVing. And we're not going to talk today about specific brands
No.
or configurations, that sort of stuff. We're just going to give you some ideas and thoughts to consider because everybody full-times differently. Some of you are single, some of you are couples, some of you are families, some of you will travel faster or slower, some of you will be stationary. All that comes into play when you figure out what kind of RV you buy for full-time living. But the first point that I want to throw out there, just to get this conversation started, as Abby checks her watch, because
Sorry, I made my move goal for today, okay? My watch just wants me to know that my move goal has been reached.
is that anything that is a little bit of a challenge when camping, right? That you can sort of deal with when you're out for a week and it's not a big deal. Those things are magnified intensely when you are full-timing. So what do I mean by that? If
Laundry.
laundry,
Laundry.
a very small kitchen space. You can cook outdoors to your heart's content when you're out camping for a week. But you can't do that full time. It's going to be raining. It's going to be
gonna be cold.
annoying.
It's going to be windy. It's going to be hot.
Yeah.
You're just not going to feel like it.
You can do it as much as possible, but you can't always do it.
Yeah.
There are just things that are harder to deal with when you are full time. So you really want to look at those things and make sure that you're not magnifying them.
Yeah, so we brainstormed a little bit this morning, talked about, in almost 4 years of travel, what are the things that we have made mistakes in not thinking of? What are the things that we were really proud of ourselves for remembering, and how all that shakes down for us just in a day-to-day function. So let's just dive right in with what our very first thought was. How will you get around?
This is a perfect example of things being magnified. If you are in a motorhome without towing a vehicle behind it and you're gone for a week, well, you can stock up on groceries and stuff before you go. Once you get somewhere, then you're going to have to figure out getting that motorhome around. Do you want to drive that through a national park? That's really challenging when you're doing that every day of your life. So you really do need some type of other vehicle, or you can travel around in a small motorhome. Like a lot of people travel in like just a Class B.
But that's not very realistic if you are a family looking to full-time. In fact, it's absolutely not realistic.
And it comes with its own problem of having to break camp every time you leave.
Yes.
A lot of people do it, and that's great. And
leave their camp chairs just sitting there, so
yeah.
we will return, and then they take off. But for us, a travel day, no matter how hard I try and no matter how organized I feel like I am in this trailer, I still feel like it's taking us too much time. And if I had to do that every time I needed to run to the store, every time I needed to do a Walmart pickup, every time we wanted to go visit a national park or just drive over for a hike, I would lose my mind.
And you can use bikes, but that's just still not realistic to be able to, drive into a drugstore or something like that. And, we've talked to lots of people over the years that start off full-timing and their plan is that they're not going to have a car right away. Maybe they're going to rent one when they get to certain places. And without fail, after that first year, everybody has either a second vehicle or they're towing a trailer with a truck.
I think a really good example of this is just our own lives before full-time when we lived in Chicago. When we had Jack, we were living in an apartment. We were close to transit. We didn't own an automobile. Mm-hmm. We did everything by CTA, or I walked in the stroller. This is what we did. And then when we added Ethan into the mix, it was like, we need to get a car. And actually, we had gotten a car right before Ethan was born. Like, I think before I even got pregnant with him, because we were just at the point where we had done a year of no automobile. and taking public transit with a kid. And it was awesome. And that's what, I'm glad we did it. But then we were like, no, this is just, it's so much work.
And this is in a city with like world-class public transit.
But it just took so much more time. It wasn't like I need to run over to the grocery store and I'm going to go over there and it's going to take me 15 minutes. No, it's I have to go to the grocery store and I've got to I've got to walk and I've got to take my kid with me and I have to load everything up, or I have to get on a bus or I have to get on a train. So that's a little bit of how RVing feels, in the sense that, yes, your home is on wheels, but it's your home. Your automobile is your automobile. This is your home. It just happens to be on wheels. And so for us, it was just an absolute that we had to have a car.
So consider towing a car, or consider a truck pulling a trailer. But no, if you get a motorhome, make sure that your motorhome can pull a car. If you already have a car that you want to pull, make sure it's something that can be pulled. Lots of cars can't. Either they can't four down or they can't on a dolly. You can look into a good resource for that is Motorhome Magazine's Dinghy Towing Guide, DINGHY. That's the style of towing when you tow a small vehicle behind you. So look into that stuff. But at the same time, those small motorhomes, those Class Bs, are the best ones to get into small spots, to overnight in a parking lot somewhere, because they take only one space, to go way deep into the boonies, boondocking, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people do full-time in vans. It's just a different lifestyle than we lead, and it's a lot harder to do with a family. And usually they're moving a lot faster. So usually they're not breaking camp to go to the grocery store. They're only staying in one spot for 1 or 2 or 3 nights, and then moving on, stopping at a grocery store as they go on.
And that's a conversation that we've had about how we want to travel when it does eventually become just the two of us. And we do go back and forth on whether or not we want to pull something small, like a Bambi, or if we want to be in a Class B. And it always comes down to that conversation of whether or not we always want to have to break camp anytime we go somewhere.
Yeah.
And we're back and forth on how we feel about that.
Another downfall with motorhomes, while we're on the subject, is if there is an issue with your motorhome and it needs to be repaired and you live in it full time, it's going to need to go into a shop, which means you moving out of it and going into a hotel. And been there, done that. We have if you've been listening for a while, you know that in our school bus conversion, we had it in the shop several times and spent lots of time in hotels.
And by shop, sometimes we mean Jason had it in the hotel parking lot.
That too.
And was working on it while we were living in the hotel for a week.
Now, that's fine. That's not something that you can't do. But if you don't want to do that, know that that can be a challenge, especially if you're getting an older vehicle. And know that repairs at RV service places do take some time. It's not like when you take your family sedan to the dealership and they spend a day or 2 or 3 on it and repair it for you. Sometimes your motorhome can be in a shop for weeks at a time.
Well, for us right now, we went from having 2 engines that we were responsible for to having 1 engine we were responsible for. And that was really important to us. After almost 3 years with 2 engines to care for, we just couldn't do it anymore. We needed something that was more like a home on wheels and not an automobile on wheels that we were living in.
And look, the appeal of a motorhome, of going down the road with that beautiful vista in front of you, of being able to get up and go to the bathroom while somebody else is driving, or have somebody cooking lunch while you're driving, all that's really appealing. But for us, we're more comfortable now for our family with a truck pulling a trailer. Plus, if something goes wrong with the truck, it goes into the shop. We can stay in a campground in our home.
Rent a car is a little bit cheaper than having to rent a hotel room.
All right, let's talk about storage.
Let's dive into the inside of your home. And what are the things that you might want to consider that you wouldn't think of?
Clothes storage. When you're going on a vacation, you're not taking anywhere near the clothes storage that you need when you're living full time and you're taking a year's worth of clothing. You're taking clothing for all seasons. That's a big difference, and you got to have a place to put them. You want to know if that storage is going to work for you, first of all, and if it's easy to access the stuff that you're going to be putting into your RV.
Yeah, I will tell you one thing I didn't consider about this trailer, and it's one thing that we're still trying to figure out how to rectify. So Henry's bed, his bunk bed, has a really big storage compartment underneath it. You lift it up, and there's enough storage underneath there that I can have all of the kids' stuff, and I put them in these Tupperware containers, and then I set the Tupperware container on top of a thinner, longer container where I put the off-season clothes for that child. That's all fine and dandy. That works out great. What I didn't think about when we were walking through this trailer is that lid to that storage area that is Henry's bunk, there are no lifts.
There's no, not only are there no lifts under it, lifts are like little gas rods that hold it up.
Right.
There are also no hinges on it. It's just a piece of plywood laying down.
Yes. And when you're walking through the rig and you lift it up and you look at it, and it's really easy because it's got that kind of crappy RV mattress on it. And it's before your child comes in and puts his 2 blankets, his 50 stuffies, his pillows, his toys. And it is at the point now where in order for me to get underneath that and to get to their clothes, I have to take half the things off of his bed because his bed is too heavy. I do that every day. And what's frustrating about that is that my kids can't be independent and get their own clothes. So I still have to get underneath there and get stuff for them when they are clearly old enough to be able to pick out their own clothes and dress themselves.
Another perfect example of something that would be fine to deal with on vacations, but is a big pain when you're living full-time. And every storage underneath the sofa, underneath everything, it's the same deal. It's pieces of plywood laying flat, and that's what you're going to find in a lot of rigs that you walk through. You'll be like, oh, there's storage under this and under this and under this. Yeah. All this great storage. Is it easy to get to? Do you have to modify it, all that stuff?
Well, let's preface this by saying, too, that this is the price point that we're in. Also, these things may not even be an issue depending on the price point that you are looking at for your rig.
And the size of your family and the size of your rig, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these are just our examples of how things have been different for us, because when we built the school bus, we built in those hinges. We built in hydraulic lifts because we knew that we wanted to be able to get under there and get stuff, and we wanted people to be able to do it on their own. It didn't even occur to me that was missing when I was like, oh, storage under a bed. That's what we've been doing for the last 3 years. Perfect.
Along with clothes storage, you got to think about laundry storage. Like half of your clothes storage ends up being laundry. Our laundry storage is 2 pop-up laundry containers that end up in our bathtub.
We have to pull them out every time we want to take a shower. And my sort of process with that is that one stays collapsed while the other one is open. Once that one is filled, I zip it up and it actually goes to the back of the truck because that becomes laundry. Then the second one pops open and it goes into the tub.
Most RV manufacturers have not put a place for laundry in your rig unless you decide to put it in a drawer or something like that.
And that was something we did think about when we were looking at our trailer, because we had specifically built a laundry area in the bus. And I was very, very hyper aware of that. And so as we were walking through these trailers, that was what we kept saying. Where are we putting laundry?
Yeah.
Where are we putting laundry? And at the end of the day, it was, we're putting laundry into the bathtub. And then when we want to use the shower or the bathtub, unfortunately, those baskets have to come out. Then they have to stay out until the tub dries.
Until it dries. That's the key. You think, oh, I'm going to store stuff in that shower and I'll just pull it out when I shower. Well, then you got to wait for it to dry.
Yeah. So I also have this kind of policy where I have everyone shower at the end of the night. And then what happens is then overnight, when we're all sleeping and this crud isn't all over the place and we're not stepping all over it, the tub dries. I wake up the next morning, I put it all back.
We've talked to listeners that have had lots of creative solutions to laundry. Like sometimes there's a hamper that goes through the pass-through underneath the bed. We've talked to people that have one of those full size truck bed drawers that pull way, way out and they put all their laundry in that.
But these are things that aren't accessible to you when you buy the actual RV. Like, they've had to create those things for themselves in order to make it work. And so that leads really, really seamlessly into our next topic, which is washer dryer.
Yeah, if you want to have a washer and dryer with you, you're going to have a fifth wheel, probably one of the larger ones, or a Class A motorhome. Those are usually the only ones that have the room and the hookups for a washer and dryer. You can put them in, or you can get a single washer / dryer unit. And that's something that you really want to have. Those are rigs that you're going to want to consider. We don't have a washer and dryer, and I think most full-timers don't, though a lot of them do. And most of us use campground laundry facilities or laundromats in town. And, that goes way back to even when we lived in an apartment building that had laundry in the basement.
Yeah, we didn't even have an apartment that had its own
Right.
in-unit washer dryer.
There was only one washer and dryer in the basement for the 3 apartments in our building, and Abby would often still go to a laundromat because she could take all of the loads of laundry and get them all done in a few hours instead of dealing with going up and down the stairs, 3 flights of stairs every, half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, so it's not a really big deal for me to have to go over to the campground laundry or to a laundromat.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't been to a laundromat in a very long time, just because of coronavirus. So we have been utilizing campground laundromats a little bit more. So it's taking a little bit more time because I really don't like to be that person that walks into the campground laundry and takes all the washers, knowing that someone else might come in behind me and need a washer too.
Yeah.
So I try not to do that. And I just try to do, 3-4 loads at a time. But then that does have me doing laundry, usually at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, depending on how much Henry decides he wants to roll around in the mud that week.
Let's talk about cooking a bit. We already talked about the fact that you can't cook outside every single time that you want to. You can't cook over, I can't tell you how many times we've cooked over a campfire because it's probably 0. That's something that I think people romanticize, and I think maybe we did too, that maybe we would be cooking over a campfire more. I mean, the number of campfires we actually have in general
in the
is
West,
very small, in the West especially. Yeah. And people have outdoor kitchens, and that's great. If you're interested in having an outdoor kitchen, you do lose storage space inside. Everything in RVing is a trade-off. So if you put an outdoor kitchen on the outside of an RV, that means you've lost storage somewhere, if you've lost space somewhere. But they're very popular. A lot of people like to use them, but you can't cook at an outdoor kitchen every single meal. They're convenient to have a sink out there to use with your grill, to have a little mini fridge and all that sort of stuff. But that's something you want to consider. You want to consider if the space inside is enough room for you to cook. Is there enough counter space? Is there enough fridge space for your needs, for your cooking style and the way that you cook at home now? Because do you really want to change the way you're already changing your lifestyle drastically? Do you want to also change the way you cook and eat drastically when you move into this new RV? That's a challenge.
Well, kids don't want to change anything.
And if you have
when
kids,
it comes to eating, they want to just, at our house, they just want to eat their pasta and their pita pizzas.
Yeah. And then storage inside your kitchen area for all those gadgets and pots and pans and stuff that you might want to bring with you. We brought more than we should have when we first started traveling, and I think we've cut down on our kitchenware quite a bit.
My goodness.
I think anybody in a kitchen in a home, you've got tons of stuff that you touch once a year.
Yeah, let's just say when we started traveling in the bus, I had my KitchenAid mixer.
With no oven. KitchenAid mixer, no oven.
Yeah, KitchenAid mixer, no oven. Well, we had a convection oven.
We had a toaster convection oven, yes.
And I also had my Lodge cast iron Dutch oven.
The enamel kind, not the kind you can put on a fire.
Yeah, those two went away real fast. But they're sitting in the closet at my mother's house because in my mind someday they're going to come
Now,
back.
I could see actually using that Dutch oven as like your only pot. That could be one
but
option,
I don't want the weight of it.
Right,
that
but it's
thing
heavy.
is so heavy.
And it's going to depend on the vehicle, again, that you have. You may have a big motorhome that has lots of storage and it has lots of extra cargo carrying capacity, and you don't have to worry so much about weight. So that is something to consider. Let's quick talk about exterior storage. We're in a travel trailer, a standard bumper pull, as they say, travel trailer, which probably have the least exterior storage. They do have the least.
We have one
exterior
pass
storage.
through.
Yeah, and we get by. But if you want a lot of exterior storage for your for your outdoor games and your chairs and all that sort of
Our friends
fun
with
stuff.
their fifth wheel, their outdoor storage, I could live in it. There's so much of it.
And Class A motorhomes often have a ton of space underneath. Now, the trade-off is we have a lot of space in the back of our truck that a lot of people don't have. But that is something to really consider, how much stuff you are going to bring with you.
The next one is, will you be stationary, or where will you winter? Do you need extra insulation and propane capacity for heating, or do you need extra air conditioning for summers in Texas?
Yeah, if you're stationary in a state like Texas or Florida, you're right now dealing with very, very hot weather. And if you've only got one 13,500 BTU air conditioner, it's probably not cutting it for you.
Yeah, so if you can kind of have an idea of that before you go to look for your rig, that's going to really help you stay as comfortable as possible.
And it is not as easy as you think to just stay in warm weather. You are going to deal with cold weather even if you're in a warm climate. You're going to deal with hot weather even if you like to drive up to Alaska every summer.
Yeah, you're going to chase 70 and then you're going to find 40s at night.
Yep.
Just so you know. So here are some things that we kind of feel aren't as helpful as you think they are, even though they are things that you should consider as you get into your full-time life.
Yeah, these are things that kind of like might draw somebody to purchase an RV, and we think that these aren't really things that matter as much as they seem, and maybe you can solve these problems in other ways as well.
Yeah, so we have solar prep.
Yeah, solar prep is basically they've ran 2 wires to your roof. So if you want to add solar to your rig, that's great, but the fact that your rig comes with solar prep isn't really the greatest feature. And you'll find a lot of this stuff is like stuff manufacturers add to RVs to make them sound better, but really they only cost them, pennies, and they're going to cost you more money when you add these things on at the dealership, like your solar panels.
Like your electric fireplace or your televator.
The electric fireplaces are great, but they're a space heater. That's what they are. They're an electric space heater. There's no difference in that. So if you want one, fantastic. If you enjoy yours, fantastic. It's a space heater with a light on it. So you can replace that if you need to with a space heater. The televator, I love your take on the televator. If you don't know what a televator is, it's the lift that brings your TV up and down. And look, maybe some of you have those, and maybe some of you love them.
No shame in your game.
But what the heck do you put on top of it?
You don't. So here's the thing. Okay, here's my take on the televator. Okay, so it comes up and you watch TV and it's wonderful. And then you're like, okay, I'm done watching TV. I want it to go away. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing. Now you have this big shelf which you can't set anything on. I mean, you can, but then if you want to go watch TV, you have to take it all off. So where are you going to put it when you take it all off? It has to have its own designated place then. Also, you can't hang anything on the big empty space behind where the televator goes when it's raised up, because you won't be able to raise the televator.
Now, sometimes it goes in front of a window, which is kind of cool, but I don't know, when you're blocking your view. Maybe we watch too much TV, I guess, but
I don't know. Our TV actually hasn't been on for like 4 days.
That's true, but I just can't imagine hiding it. It seems weird.
Well, I think it's an aesthetically pleasing sort of view.
Yeah.
Like, some people don't want to see their television like right there. But I guess for me is I'd almost just rather have doors that I could close.
It's another version of wasted space, right? Because that TV's, if it's going down into something, it's that space it's filling under there would have been storage otherwise.
Yeah, wow. We really feel strongly about the televator. We need to move on.
Okay, residential fridges.
Residential fridge, it can be great for its capacity, but it's really going to limit you, especially if you're really interested in boondocking.
They also fail more than propane fridges. People think propane fridges fail more, and that's one reason that they buy residential fridges for RVs, but actually residential fridges fail more often in an RV. So really consider that. People like them, but if you're not going to be plugged in all the time, you're going to have a way to power that residential fridge.
A Wi-Fi antenna or wiring.
Yeah, if there's like a pre-installed antenna on your roof, guess what? Their whole point in putting that there, it is up there so that you will buy their Wi-Fi plan. So you will buy the data. That is not something that you need to work with. Sometimes it's just wiring for it, again, like the solar.
Convertible sofas and dinettes, those are fantastic if you are doing short travel. They are a nightmare if you are wanting to live full time and you are planning on sleeping on these things, because then you are converting it every single day.
And don't worry about like having grandma and grandpa over, having guests that can sleep on your convertible
Ain't nobody
sofa.
want to come stay
You know
in
what?
your trailer when you live in it full time. I'm
when
telling
when you do things like that, you're going to go into a campground like the one we are in now that has cabins, and those
Yeah.
guests will stay in those cabins while you stay in your rig, and it's wonderful, and you're not all sharing the same bathroom.
My mom and dad have zero interest in sleeping on this dinette.
And none of them are comfortable.
Oh my
None.
gosh, no. We always watch that Going RV show,
Yeah.
and they all have to pull it out and they have to test it and they lay on it and they're like, oh, this is kind of comfortable. And we always yell at the TV, sleep on it first and then you tell me if
Yeah.
it's comfortable, because it's just not. Moving on, second bathroom. We will wind up this conversation with some potty talk.
That's something that's really, a second bathroom's really important to a lot of people. Now, we've lived our entire married life without a second bathroom. And, you know, there are annoyances with that, obviously.
There are annoyances for me living with 4 boys. I say often, someday I'm going to have my own bathroom and you guys are going to have your own bathroom, and your bathroom will look like your bathroom, but my bathroom will be so clean and beautiful and
Now,
you can't come in it.
If you want one, great. If you have one, great. But we have talked to lots of people who have said, I really wanted a second bathroom. I didn't get one. And guess what? It's nowhere near as bad as I thought. And the reason they didn't get one is because a second bathroom is always a major trade-off in space. Think about it. You put a second bathroom into a fixed amount of space, you are losing all of that possible storage, bed
Unless
space,
you get
whatever.
a mega fifth wheel or
Yeah,
something.
or
I mean,
your
if-
rig's going to
yeah.
be longer than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a trade-off then too, because now you have a longer rig, and that is going to restrict you even more in some of the state, federal, your ability to boondock.
That leads us to sort of the final point, which sort of ties all this together, is and I hinted at it a minute ago, is that there is no perfect rig. There is no perfect rig for you. There is the best rig for you, but you are going to sacrifice certain things in order to gain other things, because you're cramming a whole lot of stuff into a small amount of space. So you're either gaining length or losing storage or adding weight. So it all depends on who you are, how you want to travel, what kind of truck you have to tow it with, what kind of campgrounds you want to stay in. All that sort of stuff matters when you make your decision in choosing the RV that's right for you. And of course, your budget as well.
Absolutely. And you're always going to get into what you buy, and sooner or later, you're going to start thinking about the next rig. Trust me, we're already thinking about the next rig.
The grass is always greener.
It's always greener. But you know what? The days are always sunny because you are doing something that you have dreamt about doing. You're following what you believe is the right thing for you and your partner and your family, and you're getting out there and you're experiencing it. So even though you have to make these sacrifices and these trade-offs, trust us, after almost 4 years, every single sacrifice has been absolutely worth it, because we do things like that hike that we did over the weekend, and we go into seeing these amazing places that we never would have been able to see in a lifetime of vacations.
On that note, let's take a break, and we'll be right back with our Fresh Tank Black Tank.
Be right back. RV Miles is supported by the Highway Weather app.
When it comes to RV travel, weather safety is a top priority, which is why the Highway Weather app provides weather forecasts for road trips along every point of your route, adjusted to your time of travel. You can compare forecasts, get recommendations for the best time to head out, get severe weather alerts, add rest stops to long trips, and more. Did I mention that all of that's included free in the app? For subscribers, there's a hands-free background feature to automatically alert you to upcoming bad weather. To download the app, visit highwayweather.io today, or look for it in your iOS or Android app store. All right, it's time to check the levels of our tanks. Abby, what is in your black tank this week?
My black tank this week is very, very, very intense. It's the lack of Trader Joe's that I now have to accept as we get back on the road.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Our fridge is full of Trader Joe's stuff, and that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. That sounds so ridiculous. I know. But after 2-3 weeks of Trader Joe's access, just the idea now that it could be months before I go to another Trader Joe's. Now, I will say, though, I did finally run across something at Trader Joe's that I cannot get on board with. And that was the vegan mac and cheese that I had today.
Yeah, I looked at that the second I opened the fridge, and I was like, what are you thinking, vegan mac and cheese?
It looked really good.
Look, if you want to be vegan, but don't try to make mac and cheese vegan.
No, it sounded really, really good. I need to look back over the ingredients list because there's something in it that's just flipping the taste for me just enough to where I'm like, I'm out. I can't do this.
If you're not familiar with Trader Joe's, it's sort of a national grocery store chain with that does things a little bit differently. They have like incredible frozen section.
Oh,
all sorts of great frozen stuff.
We have their Japanese fried rice in the freezer. I'm saving it for like the very last thing we're going to eat. Like that'll be the Trader Joe's send off because it's just one of our most favorite meals. So that's my black tank. It's more like a gray tank. It's really not life shattering. It's just I know that now I've got a future of Walmarts ahead of me again.
What's your fresh tank?
My fresh tank this week goes to National Park Federal Campgrounds. We finally got back into one after, gosh, Jason, I don't know the last time we were in one, to be honest.
I don't either.
Gosh, probably spring of 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because, everything just kind of went cray-cray at the end of last year, and then it went cray-cray again at the beginning of this year, and we finally got back in over the weekend with some dry camping and in a national park campground, and it just felt so good.
It felt like home. There was space, there was freedom, there was beauty. It was fantastic.
It was wonderful, and that is not to discredit all the other wonderful campgrounds that we have been able to call home recently. We're so thankful that they're open, and we're so thankful we have those places to continue to safely social distance and continue to travel. But boy, it felt so good this weekend to be back in a National Park Service campground. All right, Jay, what is your black tank?
Once again,
Trader Joe's. I know.
Family...
It's okay. We're going to get through it, babe. We're going to get through it, I promise.
Once again, my family's propensity for motion sickness.
I didn't even.
We take this beautiful drive along US 50 along the Arkansas River, and it really wasn't very curvy. It wasn't something that I even thought our kids might need the wristbands or the Dramamine or anything for, and Abby has blocked it out of her mind because she had to jump up like a jackrabbit into the back seat and try to catch Henry's
peanut butter lace,
peanut butter and jelly sandwich as it came back up. And then, I had to disassemble his car seat, and thankfully we have an outdoor shower I could wash it off in. Oh, boy, that was something else.
Bless our friends who we're traveling with who stopped right alongside of us and just were like, no, it's good. You guys do what you need to do. But boy, oh, wow, I had blocked all of that out. Let's move on to your fresh tank.
My fresh tank this week is our friend Tony Barthel over at the Stressless Camping Podcast, who listened to last week's episode when I was talking about your transmission and when you go up when you make it do any extra work, when you go up a steep mountain pass or something, not turning your engine off when you get at the top because you want it to continue to run the fan and cool down. Well, Tony's father was the inventor of a famous and well-used turbo that was in lots of vehicles. And he was pointing out that turbos also suffer the same problem. If you have a turbo in your diesel truck or in your RV, it is spinning very fast when you're going up a steep incline or a decline, and you've got the RPMs up way high, and it is getting very hot, and it also needs to cool down. And that really made me think of all the people that I have talked to that have had to replace their turbos on their big, expensive diesel pusher motorhomes. Those repair bills are insane. So it's another reason you want to not turn your engine off, not turn your vehicle off right away after it's done a lot of hard work. So thank you, Tony, and please check out the Stressless Camping podcast. They do a great job over there, and we are so happy to have them as friends of the show.
Yeah, Tony and Peggy are really, really good people. And I think it's also another really wonderful example of the RV Miles Facebook group, and that Tony felt that he could come in there and continue to expand on that conversation and to educate us and to open up a dialogue. And that is so wonderful. And I think so very, very important to me, because I don't ever want what we say or what we do to be the end stop of something, because we're not perfect people who know everything about everything.
Hey, we're learning about this as we go. We do this so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Yes.
And we've got some experience under us now, but by no means are we anywhere near the most experienced RVers out there.
Yeah.
We are learning as we go.
And so it's really, really great when Tony can come into the group and help expand that conversation. And then you get to have that light bulb like, oh, the turbo, ding.
Yeah,
and that comes on.
That's what we do in that group. We talk about sort of after the show stuff, and then any of your RVing questions or your travel questions, they're all answered right there from really nice people. It's almost like Disneyland. It's the happiest place on earth. Almost.
It's the happiest RV place.
It's the happiest place on Facebook for sure.
I think that is a great place to wrap up this week's episode.
Let's do a brain teaser.
Yes.
Here we go. You can watch me, but I do not move at all. Watch me do nothing as I sit by a wall. As I'm being watched, I tend to get hotter. For heaven's sake, don't put me near water. What am I?
A gremlin.
We'll have the answer to that and a whole lot more on next week's episode of the RV Miles podcast.
We absolutely will. And hey, we would like to invite you to connect with us across social media. RV Miles is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also on YouTube, which you may be watching this right now, or you may be listening to it, or you may be doing both. Also, if you haven't checked out our 2 other podcasts, yes, you heard right, we do 3 podcasts a week. We have RV Miles, we have the America's National Parks podcast, and we have our newest, the See America podcast, which is actually about to start season 5. We're in the middle of season 4 right now.
We have about 4 episodes left in season 4.
Yeah, amazing enough. So if you're listening to this on your podcast app, you will absolutely find America's National Parks and See America. If you have any questions, suggestions for Jason and I, please feel free to email us at editor@rvmiles.com, or just drop into the DMs anywhere across social media. Drop it in the Facebook group. But until next week, have a fantastic week. Stay safe, wear a mask, and keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody. 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 Goodbye. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.